Well, as you can tell, my college jersey's hanging up behind me, and you can see that by the time I was a senior, I was wearing 54.
I was going to ask you about that.
So I used to be number 82, and there were a couple factors in that, but my freshman year, like I said, I started right away. I was a pure tight end. I was I wasn't a blocking tight end. I mean, I caught 6 passes in one game my freshman year, which is like my big claim to fame, I guess. So I could run routes, I could catch passes. I wasn't gonna, blow anyone away with my blazing 5 flat 40, but I could catch the ball. I had pretty good hands and could go over the middle and things like that, and I could block. But we started to see it about halfway through my freshman year. I was spending as many snaps split out wide like a wide receiver as I was in a 3-point stance, and I was going in motion all the time. And we had a great quarterback who transferred in from Youngstown State named Matt D'Orazio, who went on to win 2 Arena League MVPs. Wow. And 2 Arena Bowls, and great quarterback. And he was my roommate freshman year, and one of the best competitors I've ever played with in my life. And he was so good. And I started to go, all right, we're going to be a spread offense, we're going to spread out more. And my sophomore year, I hurt my knee in training camp. I had actually already started the transition of changing positions. I went over to the defensive line, and in the preseason game, I tore the meniscus in my knee in a couple spots. I ended up playing the whole season on it. And my coaches were really good about it because they knew that, that I was hurting, and it was hard for me to go from being an every down player starter as a freshman to I barely would practice during the week. And then I'd suit up on Saturday, and they would put me at defensive line, tight end, H-back, fullback. Like, they kind of put me like in short yardage whenever they could get me in. And, so they kept me engaged for another year. But then I had surgery, and they said, have you ever thought about playing offensive line? And I said, well, the last time I played was in 8th grade. I was a center, and I loved being a center. And because that way, you're involved in every play, and you're making the line calls and snapping the ball. And my junior and senior year, I played center, and the rest was history with that. And we had a guy named Jeff Gibbs. I know you're a basketball fan. I don't know if you're aware of Jeff Gibbs, but he was a tight end on our football team, and like the more hybrid Antonio Gates type tight end, All-American in basketball and football at Otterbein, won a national championship, and he's still playing overseas in Japan.
Wow.
And he just won that the TBT in 2019 with Carmen's crew.
Really?
And so that $2 million tournament in the summer.
Wow.
And he was like one of the only guys who didn't actually play at Ohio State that was on that team. But he was like, seeing him play tight end made me go, yeah, I'm not the new, like he's got that. I'll snap the ball and protect our quarterback so he can throw it to Jeff, because he was such a phenomenal athlete, and it just really, the writing was on the wall. I mean, a traditional tight end in the mid 90s, by the late 90s, we were in a dying breed.
I was going to ask you about that. And you look at, like, obviously Ozzie Newsome was kind of a anomaly. That way he was he was different. He was, kind of a hybrid receiver. He was very different, but most tight ends were, like you said, more blocking. It was, it was more old school. It wasn't as much like the run, like you see now with Njoku with the Browns. I mean, he's running routes basically. He's not just
right.
So, and he has almost a bigger receiver's body than he does a tight end's body. So It's very different. It's only been 20 some years. It's not like it's been 50 years. So it's changed so much, and it's really not. You don't even notice the position anymore. It's so different.
No.
And I think it's funny because tight end in the NFL and college, especially in the NFL, Dan, is so important now. And you can really, mismatch problems all over the place when you have a great tight end in the NFL now, because the linebackers can't cover them. They're too big for the safeties. So it's really presenting a lot of problems, but it's just interesting to hear your perspective from back in the 90s to now and how it's
Yeah,
changed.
I like to say I graduated about 4 years too early from high school, because maybe 4 years earlier it would have been a different story for me, but it all worked out. And I'll tell you what, playing center those last 2 years, I wouldn't trade that for the world anyways. Like, I loved it.